Tyrone Bowman live. Global News. Welcome to the program, everybody. Welcome to the conversation. We're just getting started here on this Wednesday afternoon. Have a lot of territory to cover. A lot of important things are going down and happening around the country and throughout the world. As I'm getting started with my preliminary remarks today, I'm trying to get this lighting together. Some days it's easy, y'all. Some days not. So while I'm working on getting the lighting together, I like to say that there's a lot of things that are happening around the country and around the world. And I'm doing my best to try to cover what's happening. So today, I want to thank all of you who have subscribed to Tyrone Bowman Live. Appreciate your subscriptions. We're on the road to getting 3,000 subscribers, hopefully, before the day is over. Maybe we'll reach that goal. Who knows? I don't know if we will, but we're going to try. So many people as possible who can subscribe, I appreciate you subscribing. And also, if you'd like to support the channel, I put the information for my CashApp up on the screen. You can see it. It's $PIEXAL number 4. So let's get started with the program on today. The late Maya Angelou made a statement, quote, "When people first show who they are, believe them," end quote. Hope I quoted it right. The midterm elections are coming up, and the Republicans don't want to have free and fair elections. So what do? They love to demonize and criticize and say that the Democrats are trying to steal the election. In actuality, they are the ones who are planning to steal the midterm elections. And if you don't think that they're trying to steal them, let me remind you of something before I read this article from Democracy Docket. I warned you all about Project 2026. People did not believe me. They thought it was a joke. They thought it was a game until it happened. Well, now Project 2027 is in full force. And what is that? Steal the midterm elections. And the way to do that is to distract and deflect and keep people off guard as we go into November, accuse the Democrats of lying, accuse the Democrats of stealing, and all during the while they are calculating how to rig and steal the elections. And who are they going to use to do it? ICE. Yeah, I said it. They're going to use ICE to do it, to try to threaten, intimidate people from going to the polls. If they come to the polls, they're going to be the secret police and try to intimidate people not to vote. According to an article from Democracy Docket, was first published the 4th of February of this year. I'm going to read this article by Mark Ellis. Quote, "If you want to know what Republicans are planning for the midterm elections, you should be paying close attention to Steve Bannon. He isn't your regular, everyday right-wing conspiracy theorist and propagandist. He's the smartest strategist in the MAGA movement. And most importantly, he is the whisperer when it comes to election denialism. It was Bannon's hand pulling the strings back in 2016, sending Trump to the White House while installing himself as chief strategist. On January 5, 2021, he told the world that, quote, all hell will break loose tomorrow, end quote. And on January 6, it did. Be forewarned, ladies and gentlemen, don't let your guard down. These people are not playing, they are serious, and by hook or crook, they want to stay in power. They do not want free, fair, and open elections. While Bannon may not be, while it may not be him, well, let me go back to January 6th. January 6th was an insurrection. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Because if a bunch of black people, angry black men, had done the same thing that these white men did, you would have called it an insurrection. You would have called it a revolution. You would have called it rebellion. And every last one of them will still be in prison for life right now. And you know it. So don't give me that double-handed crap, double-handed talk. I'm too alert and too awoke and too intelligent to be manipulated and beguiled. Let's get back to Bannon. While Bannon may not be in the Trump White House right now, don't be mistaken. Bannon is the single most influential person in the MAGA movement. What Steve Bannon says goes. So when he stood behind a podium today, we all needed to listen. Quote, we're going to have ice around the polls on November. We're not going to sit here and allow you, meaning black people, see, they don't come right out and say it, but I know the coded language, meaning the Democrats. We're not going to allow you to steal the country again, and we will never again allow an election to be stolen, end quote. So that is the dog whistle that's already being sounded to arouse the troops, get them lined up, get them angry, get them stirred up, cause controversy, mayhem, confusion, and pandemonium. Calling states, quote, an agent of the government, Bannon said, when you see some of these states about how horribly they run their elections, what a disgrace it is, I think the federal government should get involved. That means they want to nationalize elections, take the elections over so they can rig them for what they want it to be. That's exactly what that means. And if you sit back and don't pay attention to what's going on when it happens, you have no one to blame but yourselves. That's why when I hear all these people talking about they regret voting for Trump, I pay them no mind because you knew methodically and exactly what you were doing. And you got what you asked for, but you don't like it because you didn't think it was going to happen to you. Y'all thought that all black people in America were going to suffer. That's what y'all thought. So, this is not the first time President Trump has said this. Last August, he wrote the same thing on social media. Quote, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them to do, end quote. Bannon's remarks also follow President Trump's recent declaration that Republicans should take over elections and ought to nationalize the voting. House Speaker Mike Johnson also falsely claimed that elections were fraudulent. Well, Johnson, if elections were fraudulent, that means that you are not a legitimate Speaker of the House. If all the elections are rigged, are you trying to tell us that the Republicans don't rig elections? You trying to tell us that the Republicans are the only people that you can trust in this country and in this nation? That's what you want us to believe? Johnson, with a long history of electionism, went further. Quote, we have 3 House Republican candidates who were ahead on election day in the last election cycle, and every time a new trench of ballots came in, they just magically whittled away until their leads were lost. It looks on its face to be fraudulent, end quote. In true election denier fashion, he added, can I prove that? No, if you can't prove it, then why are you talking about it? See, this is the type of stuff that causes rebellion. This is the type of foolishness that beguile people. But I think people are more alert. The implications seem clear. 9 months out from the midterm elections, we face a coordinated effort. By who? By the Republicans, congressional Republicans, and MAGA leaders to normalize a federal takeover of elections enforced by ICE and federal agents. The article goes on to say, those of you who are frequent readers of, what's the name of this? Of Democracy Docket. Pardon me, let me get back to it. The writer goes on to say, those of you who are frequent readers of Democracy Docket, writing know I have been sounding this alarm for months. Just yesterday, I wrote that President Trump would use federal paramilitary forces to block voting access. After that, he may use the Department of Justice to seize ballots and take over vote counting. Sending in ICE and federal agents to patrol elections isn't just about immigration. So what is it about? Federal officers can block roads, making it more difficult to get to your local polling location. They can use intimidation tactics to scare people who are trying to vote for Democrats. They may use violence against those who are campaigning, knocking on doors, and doing same-day voter registration. All of this, of course, is unconstitutional and illegal. Voter suppression isn't always done quietly through laws in the courts. Remember that. So you've been warned, as the writer of the article says, don't say you weren't warned, end quote. So if you want more information, go to, I'll get back to that. All right, let's look around the country and find out what's going on in other parts of the world here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, according to the article by the Wall Street Journal, this was written by Lindsay Wise, Sabihan Hughes, and Michelle Hackman. The article reads, Congress ended the shutdown. Now comes the fight over ICE. Lawmakers have less than 2 weeks to reach a deal on imposing stricter rules for immigration enforcement operations. Congress managed to end a brief partial government shutdown triggered by a fight over immigration enforcement, narrowly approving a $1.22 trillion spending package in the House and sending it to President Trump's desk for signature. And that was the easy part. Now, Republicans and Democrats have less than 2 weeks to negotiate legislation that would place new restrictions on immigration enforcement. Lawmakers are wading into one of the nation's thorniest policy debates at the heart of Trump's presidency in the volatile environment of a midterm election year. Democrats, angered by the fatal shooting of Alex Petty by federal immigration agents in Minnesota, have demanded a list of changes they want to see written into the bill before they provide the votes needed to pass full-year funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Republicans have a 53-47 majority in the Senate, but needed 60 votes to advance the legislation under the chamber's rules. Quote, executive actions alone will never be enough, end quote, said Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, on yesterday. We know how whimsical Donald is, or she should have said, the president is. He'll say one thing one day and retract it the next, end quote. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the White House is willing, obviously, to have this dialogue and to talk and listen, but she said, we're not going to concede in enforcing our nation's immigration laws. This is not about enforcing immigration laws. This is about control. Where's the money for housing? Where's the money for Medicaid and Medicare? Where's the money for the homeless? Where's the money for education? Oh, that goes to the wealthy people who don't need it. Where's the money for jobs? Where's the money for individuals who are barely making ends meet, even though they're working 2 and 3 jobs? Where's the money for the waiters and the waitresses, the hosts and hostesses? They don't make a lot of money doing what they do, and they barely survive on tips. So where's the money for them? Where's the money for the seniors? Where's the money for after-school programs for individuals who have no place to go? And what about struggling one-parent households who are legally and ethically doing everything they can to make sure that they're taking care of their families? Where's the money for that? See, these are the things that the Republicans don't want to address. Why? Because it involves, you know what, let me respond to this comment. You get the money when you get the job. Stop being stupid. Some of y'all in the comment section, you're just plain asinine. You know darn well that having one job barely paying enough money above the minimum wage doesn't cut it. It's easy for wealthy people to sit back and tell everybody just get a job. There are a lot of people who have jobs and can't pay their bills. You writing in the comments section probably have a job and can't even pay your bills. You probably have somebody helping you to pay your bills, or you're stealing something from somewhere. So whether you like what I say or not, you don't even have to come over here. I keep telling you all that. Just because I don't censor your dumb behinds doesn't mean I'm going to put up with your foolishness. So if you don't like it here, then take yourself, go over to racist, bigoted MAGA country, where you can listen to all the racist, bigoted propaganda you want day and night, unfiltered. Or go to MAGA racist controlled radio, where you can hear them using the N-word and everything else all day and all night. But over here, you don't control nothing. So let me get back to this article. So lawmakers warned that reaching a deal before the February 13th deadline would be impossible, as it's going to be. Quote, I don't think it's very realistic personally, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, told reporters Tuesday, who knows, maybe there's always some miracles, right? No miracles are going to take place. None. Senator John Kennedy, a Republican from Louisiana, said he expected the debate over immigration and customs enforcement would have all of the substance and efficiency of an 8th grade car wash. He said he hoped he was wrong on his prediction, but what I smell coming is a long shutdown for DHS. Why do you Republicans think that the Democrats are just supposed to go along with any and everything because you say it? Just because you say it doesn't make it law. Just because the Republicans say it doesn't make it right. Just because they say it doesn't mean the Democrats have to kowtow and bow down and appease them. It's time for the Democrats to have spine. It's time for the Democrats to stand together, one voice, one unified front. You don't let anybody steal the upcoming midterm elections. Everybody has a right to vote his or her conscience, whether people agree with their vote or not. Like I said, those who voted for Trump, that's your political conscience. You have the right to vote for him, no problem there whatsoever. But y'all don't have the right to try to tell the rest of us how to vote either. Democrats aren't optimistic either. Senator Cory Booker, the Democrat from New Jersey, predicted it will be extraordinarily challenging to get a deal at all because the Trump administration doesn't seem to be wanting to back away in any way from their reckless, cruel, and unjust actions, quote, close quote. Among Democrats' demands are an end to roving streets patrolled by federal immigration agents. That's not going to happen. Tighter rules governing warrants and use of force. That's not going to happen. Independent investigations for officer misconduct. That's not going to happen. And the prohibition on agents wearing masks, that's definitely not going to happen. The purpose of the concealment is so that they can't be recognized. The purpose of the concealment is so that they can do what they do without impunity. Under any ordinary circumstances, and I can tell you this as a law student, under any ordinary circumstances, if people wearing a mask and committing crimes, they would be persecuted. They will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And the majority of the ICE agents, some of them may be good people, I don't know, but the majority of them, they're in it for one purpose and one purpose only, because they were told that you're going to make a lot of money and you have impunity from committing any crimes. You have total immunity. That's why they're there. So Cory Booker goes on to say they also want to require agents to use body cameras and carry identification. Not going to happen. All these things right here are why there's going to be a long protracted government shutdown. And this time the Democrats are not going to cave in. This time they're going to stand their ground. Because once they agreed to the government shutdown the last time, did anything happen? No. First thing they wanted to do, get rid of unified health care. First thing they said, we're going to cut all the SNAP benefits. But none of them are giving up their paychecks. None of them are decreasing their salaries. None of them are foregoing anything. If anything, they want more and more and more and more. That's why most people become politicians or leave private sector, because they find out how the system works and how they can get away with a lot of stuff. So in response to public backlash, Trump removed Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino from Minnesota and sent his White House border czar Tom Homan. Gregory Bovino is still somewhere. Just because he's been moved as a border czar, that's just to save face. He's still a part of the thicket, just like the rest of them are. So Tom Homan was sent to replace Greg Bovino, the one who was wearing the Nazi clothing and with the Nazi salutes and all that kind of foolishness, signaling a retreat from some of the most aggressive tactics to which Democrats have objected. That's not going to happen. Homan announced today that the Trump administration is pulling 700 of the roughly 3,000 federal officers and agents out of Minnesota. Earlier, the administration pledged to provide body cameras to federal officers in Minneapolis and expand the program nationwide. We'll see. On Capitol Hill, already lawmakers are arguing over a number of items on Democrats' list, including Democrats' insistence on a mask ban foreshadowing official negotiations ahead. Senator Eric Schmidt, Republican from Missouri, a close Trump ally, dismissed Democrats' demands as personally dangerous and professionally impossible, requiring that officers remove their masks and identify themselves during operations as a clear and obvious attempt to intimidate and put our federal agents in harm's way, Schmidt said. How are the agents in harm's way when they got all the weaponry? They got all the power. Are there some lunatics out there that are protesting? Without a doubt, there are. Are there some protesters out there who have broken the law? Yep. A lot of them have. People just want them to do their job responsibly and ethically and morally. That should be the purpose of immigration enforcement. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, said Democrats simply want ICE agents to operate under the same constraints as other law enforcement officials. Let me ask you a question. Suppose President Obama, when he was in office, had done the same exact thing, the same exact way. Tell me about it. I'll wait. If he had conducted himself the same way, you already know what would have happened. They would have voted to impeach him and remove him from office. It's a double standard. Always has been, always will be. That's why they don't want Jasmine Crockett in the Senate. They don't want that fierce, articulate, intelligent black woman to be a senator. But she's going to be. Whether people think she can win or not, it doesn't matter. See, people's personal public opinions and analysis of somebody does not necessitate their defeat. If anything, it fuels energy in the campaign, and it causes people to want to come out and vote for her even more, because that means you all have something to hide. Because the roadblocks, the obstructionists, the namesayers, all the name calling, they did it during the freedom movement era under the leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Same tactics. The same tactics that are being used today were used back then, the ones that they want us to forget about, but we're never going to forget about. It's just under a different name, a different time, a different era, but it's the same stuff. The same enforcement. Go back into the annals of history. Many other Republicans do not want to look at eyes on the prize. They don't want to be reminded of the awful atrocities and the murders that happened during the civil rights era. They don't want to be reminded of the 4 black girls who were bombed to death by a Klansman. They don't want to be reminded by the murder of Emmett Till because of the lies of a white woman. They don't want to be reminded of the death of Medgar Evers. They don't want to be reminded of the movie that was made called Mississippi Burning. They don't want to be reminded of these things because it doesn't bode well with their brand. Lawmakers are divided over whether to change 2 contentious policies, and some say create too low a threshold for arrests and home searches. One is based on a memo that the Trump administration crafted to assert powers to forcibly enter the homes of immigrants whom they are hoping to arrest without a criminal warrant signed by a judge. The administration has asserted it can forcibly enter homes using only an administrative warrant, which currently is signed by an internal ICE supervisor, though outside experts say that likely violates constitutional protections against unreasonable search and seizure. You remember the show Law and Order? That's now in syndication. Didn't people learn anything from that? A lot of cases are lost, quote unquote, in that fictitious series because of the violation of people's constitutional rights. Nobody is against immigration reform. Nobody in their right mind would be. Immigration reform is necessary, and I agree with it. Let me say that once again. Immigration reform is necessary, but I do agree with it. But how it's done is another issue. The second has to do with warrantless arrest, popularized this year by Bovino, who sent roving patrols of agents to comb neighborhoods for people to stop and question. In September, the Supreme Court allowed Bovino's approach to continue, with Justice Brett Kavanaugh writing that it is legal for agents to use a person's, listen, it is legal for agents to use a person's skin color, language spoken, or their profession. For examples, as factors to consider when deciding to ask for their papers under a change, Democrats are proposing officers would be required to have an administrative warrant signed by a neutral third party so they know who they are targeting in advance. That's not going to happen. Because even if they have that, they're still going to find ways to violate it. Some Republicans argue that the main problem is that the Democratic-run cities' leaders are impeding the work of ICE. They are already in their own list of demands, including legislation to eliminate what are called sanctuary city jurisdictions that refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. You know what would be fair and just? That these same agents go into Republican cities. You don't think they have illegal immigrants in Republican cities? You don't think that a lot of these politicians have illegal immigrants as their maids, their butlers, and their chauffeurs, and their gardeners? You don't see any ICE agents going to any Republican cities at all. None. It's only Democratic cities. That's it. And even if the leaders in the Democratic cities cooperate, they still are being demonized. Quote, it's only fair that if you're going to open this thing up and start talking about that we get into what actually is causing this problem in the first place. And a lot of it is local units of government that are floating federal laws, said Senator Mike Rounds, Republican from South Dakota. Quote, there is no upside to sanctuary cities unless you're a complete radical nut job. This is coming from Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. He told Trump during the Oval Office ceremony in which the president signed the government funding bill. I don't take no stock in what Lindsey Graham has to say at this point in time. See, polarization politics, if you don't agree with them, then you got to be crazy. Well, what about the loony nut jobs in the Republican Party? There are thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them. We see them all the time. And they try to make people believe that what you see is not what you see because they want to play the three-card Molly game. Now you see it, now you don't. They want to play the okey-doke game in the words of my people from the streets. They're trying to flim-flam people. Make people think that what they see and what they hear is not what they see and hear. That's what prosecutors do in court every day. Under the guise of seeking justice, many of them break the law, calling themselves breaking the law to enforce the law. And then when they get caught in their audacious lies, they want to claim prosecutorial immunity. But if a defense attorney gets caught lying, that same immunity doesn't apply to them because they want to cite perjury charges. right away. I know how evil and how wicked this criminal justice system is firsthand because I've experienced it. I've said it many times on this program, and I'll say it again because I'm not afraid to say it and I'm not ashamed to say it. I did 10 years in 4 state penitentiaries across Pennsylvania. After being falsely charged, falsely arrested, a sham of a trial by a bunch of white racists, despite all the evidence to the contrary that supported my innocence, they convicted my black behind and then had the nerve to want me to not do the full time. I said, you must be out of your damn minds. I'm not confessing to nothing. Not today, not tomorrow, not to ever. You can bag me and tag me. Do whatever you want. You'll never get a confession out of me. And that's one reason why I'm becoming an attorney, because I hate injustice. I don't care who it's coming from black folk, from white folk, from Latinos, from Mexicans. I don't care. I hate injustice of any kind. And I know what prisons are like. I know what goes on behind closed doors in the DLC. I've seen the corruption firsthand, from the top to the bottom and in between. So don't tell me that all law enforcement officials or officers are bravely doing their jobs and following the law to the letter of the land. That's a lie. You had one corrupt judge up in Midwestern Pennsylvania who was running a child sex trafficking ring, and he was a Republican. And he got caught. And then he tried to claim that he didn't know what he was doing. You knew exactly what you were doing, sir. And that's that same judge who locked up hundreds of thousands of people. So all judges are not right either. We're going to do stuff, let's do it right, do it fairly. It should be one law for everybody across the board. So government lawmakers think that they have a strong bargaining position given that Trump's signature 2025 law known as the Big Beautiful Bill provided an extra $75 billion for ICE and $65 billion for Customs and Border Protection. Those funds can be tapped if DHS funding lapses later this month. Well, you better tap into it because the Democrats aren't going to go along with it. So you might as well go ahead and tap into the reserves. So since you all said you got an ace in the hole, all right, here's an article from the Marshall Project. Now listen to this article. Quote, we know where you live. Protesters say ICE agents retaliate with threats and investigations. ICE observes and critics report being audited, pulled over, called by name, or followed home by agents. This article was written by Daphne Direct and Jesse Bogan. Do you all really think that the midterm elections are not going to bring about a change in this country? Do you think that the populace in the country is just going to sit back and say, you know what, we're not going to come out and vote? My people have died for the right to vote in this country. Let me say that again. My people have died for the right to vote in this country. They had litmus tests for black people, poll taxes for black people. And if you voluntarily agreed to vote the way they wanted you to vote down in the deep South, you didn't have any problems from the segregationists. That's why they hated Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is a product of the South, born in the South, raised under Jim Crow, segregation, and bigotry. His father saw more lynchings than the law could allow as a young man growing up in the South. And people are trying to tell us that times have changed. Times have not changed. It's just a brand new face with different players. The game is still being played. People's lives are still in peril. Well, let me read this article it's an analysis from the Marshall Project. For those of you that are watching, if you haven't subscribed to Tyrone Bowman Live, consider subscribing. Thank you. All right. And I quote, hours after the co-owner of a St. Paul toy store criticized the federal government's immigration crackdown in the Twin Cities, during a national television interview, workers there said a pair of federal agents suddenly showed up to announce an audit of employee records. In another case, protesters observing immigration and customs enforcement movement said officers called them by name and even led them back to their own home. To the protesters, the incident felt like a bold attempt to silence dissent. Since Operation Metro Surge began in early December, immigration authorities have arrested some 300,000 people in Minneapolis. Or is it 300,000? 3,000 people in Minneapolis. And so, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and surrounding areas. The enforcement blitz has drawn criticism, especially of federal agents from ICE and the Border Patrol violently reacting to protests, including the shooting deaths of U.S. citizens Renee Good and Alex Pretty. But residents in the Twin Cities and other areas where ICE has been cracking down recently say that some of the retaliation they face has come without a finger being laid on them. Quote, we're talking about subtle transactions of intimidation here, said Kafani Turi, a senior fellow at Yale Urban Ethnography Project and a former police officer. He said the shootings of Good and Pretty were dramatic tools of force, not shootings, the murders. Repression doesn't always operate in the dramatic, it often operates in the mundane, end quote. Just like when people come into interrogation rooms in order to get your DNA, these dummies, they'll sit there and let them bring them food, water, soda. Don't you know it's called good cops, good cop, bad cop that goes on in interrogation rooms? One comes in, try to be conciliatory, sympathetic, and understanding, and he's of the same from the same rotten fruit. And the other one comes in trying to be the hard guy. Meanwhile, on the other side of the glass, everybody's watching all the action and drama go down. A word of wisdom to the wise: stop talking so much during interrogation and assert your right for a lawyer. That'll shut everything down. Stop talking without legal counsel. That's how a lot of you all get yourselves in trouble. You're so eager to try to get your side of the story, and they'll say something like this: well, you know, I can understand what you're dealing with and what you're going through. I'm here to help you. I'm your friend. And we just want your side of the story. No, you all want to hurry up and get a false confession before that person can lawyer up. What's the first thing corrupt politicians do? They lawyer up. And they always talk about their constitutional rights being violated. What do corporate greedy CEOs in America do? They lawyer up. And they talk about their constitutional rights being violated. When people are surreptitiously fired from their jobs without probable justification or cause, and they know retaliation is coming, so they lawyer up and they get the lies started in an attempt not to be sued. Learn the Constitution for yourself. Learn how to think and read and write for yourself. The first thing you say is, I will not talk without an attorney present. These cops had me at gunpoint. Told me they would blow my brains out if I didn't confess to what they wanted. I said, I don't give a damn. You might as well go ahead and blow my brains out and write up all the lies like you always do. But you'll never get a confession out of me. If you think I'm lying, you go to my prison channel called Breaking the Chains with Tyrone Bowman. Now go there. I dare you, if you think I'm lying. That channel is for men and women who are incarcerated, who have come home, and for individuals who just want to know how the system works. That's what that channel is for. My prison mugshot is over there. My prison number is there. It's all there. I put it all out in the open. for the whole world to see. And that number, FC7210, I will take that number and I will turn it into something and make it proud and choke them with it. What you thought would destroy me will make me. Don't let nobody psychologically try to put stuff inside you. Half of the people who have been partying and got and et cetera, are criminals. And they're going on with their lives. Don't let nobody bag and tag you and make you think that psychologically, because they put you in a system, that you're worthless and you're nothing and that you'll never be anybody and that you can't do anything. Stop going along with those lies. You'll forever be called a convict, and they'll forever be calling somebody a victim. Stop being the victim and become the victor. No, you should never forget what happened to you if you're a true victim of crimes. Never forget it. But don't let that cripple you psychologically for the rest of your life. I refuse to be crippled psychologically because of what I've gone through and what I've dealt with. It's not going to happen. So let's get back to this. In the case of Mischief Toys, ABC News reported that workers at the St. Paul toy store used a 3D printer to make thousands of free whistles for people to alert others of the presence of immigration agents. Co-owner Abigail Edelsham Marshall told ABC News that it was a form of nonviolent protest and that the man soared after Good was killed. Everyone is looking for anything they can do to help their community right now, she said, adding ICE is doing more to hurt our community than immigrations have. And I can't overstate how much our entire community is being terrorized by ICE right now, end quote. And then the federal agents came to the store. Department of Homeland Security officials confirmed that it had opened an investigation into the store. Quote, there is an active HSI, well, you know what that acronym stands for, involving this business that has nothing to do with this owner's political views, Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in a statement to The Independent. Don't believe a word of it. She went on to call the claims that the investigation was in retaliation for Edelsham Marshall's comments, quote, a flagrant attempt to further demonize our law enforcement officers who are already facing a more than 1,300% increase in assaults against them, end quote. Well, I'll say this, whether people will want to believe it or not, accept it or not. The balance of power in this country is going to change. Whether Republicans want it to change or not. It's going to. It's going to change. Are there some good Republicans? Yes, but few, far and in between. Are there some rotten Democrats? Yep. Few, far and in between. Nothing is going to remain the same. Mike Cutler spent 3 decades at the Immigration and Naturalization Service, the predecessor to ICE and other Homeland Security units. Since he retired as a senior special agent, he has been a consultant on immigration enforcement and testified before Congress. Cutler said he doubted there was a retaliatory audit because it would diverge from how the agency operated in the past. What else would he say? He's not going to say anything to the contrary because he's one of them. He's just retired. That's all. That's it. Somebody say, you gay, sir? What does that have to do with anything? What, you hate gay people? So you hate the LGBTQ community? There are gay Republicans. Do you hate them? There are gay senators that are Republicans. Do you hate them? Gay people pay taxes just like everybody else. So this demonization of the LGBTQ plus community is nothing but a farce by MAGA, and half of the people MAGA probably get. So that's my answer to you. Then deal with that. Now go to your little racist church where you go to worship, where you can damn all gay people to hell, and damn your pastor to hell who's probably an adulterer. What? Yeah, I said it. So that's the clap back for you. Gay people vote. Gay people spend money just like anybody else. They're engaged in political activism just like anyone else. They're contributors to society just like everyone else. Just because a certain majority of y'all don't like them doesn't mean that their lives are not important. Now, that's my answer to you. In another incident in Minneapolis, hospital officials at Hennepin County Medical Center publicly criticized ICE agents for showing up at a patient's bedside without a warrant. 2 days later, on January 8th, federal agents sent hospital administrators a letter announcing a similar audit. Since then, immigration officers have continued showing up at the hospital, causing some workers to fear that their presence could dissuade people from seeking care and spark a public health crisis. All right, I'm going to stop reading the article from the Marshall Project, and I'm going to put it this way. They're not going to be satisfied until there are hundreds of thousands of people and even millions of people dead. And then and only then will something be done. Never forget that everything that Hitler did in Nazi Germany, he did it within the context of the law. And he didn't do it by himself. He had a whole staff that helped him to do it. Let me show you how rotten Hitler was. All his scientists and all the people who kept his secrets, he made sure they were killed. A lot of defectors who left came to America. And some of them who were part of Hitler's time are still alive in this nation trying to hide right now. What happened in Nazi Germany was hideous, without question. It should never happen again. Never. What happened with slavery was hideous. It should never happen again. Period. I'm for what is fair, for what is right, and for what is just. I will criticize anybody on this channel. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. If you're doing good, I'm going to acknowledge the good that you do, even if it's coming from the Republicans. If they're doing great work, I'm going to acknowledge the great work that they do. If the Democrats are messing up, I'll acknowledge that as well. You've heard me criticize the Democrats like nobody else on this channel. And how many times have you all heard me say very plainly, Trump is the president of the United States, and by him being the president, he should be respected in that capacity. That's the bottom line. Whether you all like him, loathe him, or despise him, he's still the president of the United States. Whether you agree with his policies or disagree with his policies, he's still the president of the United States. In biblical times, for those of you who are students of scripture, it was Almighty God himself, Elohim Adonai, that dealt with leaders. God is not blind. He knows exactly what's happening and what's going on in America and around the world. And he will deal with leaders. It takes a divine sovereign, someone who's higher than those who are in power, to put them in their place. Until then, you respect leadership, you agree with it or not. And that's the bottom line. All right, here's another article I want to talk about. Let's talk about a Supreme Court decision that lets California use congressional maps that favor the Democrats. Now, this should be a hot topic. This was written for USA Today, my Marine Gropey. Gropey. All right, California can use a congressional map drawn to give Democrats an advantage in this year's midterm elections. The Supreme Court said February 4 in a decision that will make it harder for Republicans to keep control of Congress. The court declined a request from California Republicans, which was backed by the Trump administration, to block the map adopted by California voters in November at the initiative of California's Governor Gavin Newsom. Republicans have a razor-thin majority in the U.S. House. If Democrats seize control, they can thwart Trump's legislative agenda and launch investigations into his administration. Why are Republicans upset? Didn't y'all do the same thing down in Texas? It was signed into law. It was good then. Y'all paraded, you celebrated, you lambasted the Democrats. And then when the governor of California turned around and did the same thing with the redistricting and the redrawing of the maps, now y'all have a problem. What hypocrisy! What hypocrisy! That's the reason why it's called polarization politics. Y'all can do it, but the Democrats can't. So that's the game they're playing. We can do it. We can use gerrymandering. We can redraw the congressional maps. We can move the goalpost in the middle of the football game, but y'all can't do it. A group of California Republicans argued that the state legislature relied too much on race rather than politics to create the new districts. Bull. You races are what redrew the map down in Texas. Race means blacks, y'all, in favor of the blacks, because the blacks will come out in greater proportion in California. I know the coded lingo, so let's just put it right out in the atmosphere. It's favoring the blacks, the Negroes. That's what it's all about. Stop black people from voting. But the High Court, without comment or any noted dissent, refused to intervene. It did so 2 months after ruling that Texas, listen, they ruled that Texas could use a controversial map drawn to help Republicans win as many as 5 additional seats in the U.S. So it's okay for them? The same Supreme Court said the Republicans can do it down in Texas, and they're saying that the Democrats can do it in California, but y'all got a problem with that. Because Republicans want to have a leverage, but they don't want the Democrats to have the leverage. Man, get out of here with that stupidity. Quote, Donald Trump said he was entitled to 5 more congressional seats in Texas. End quote. Newsom said in a social media post after the decision, quote, he started this redistricting war. He lost and he'll lose again in November. Let me talk about the man who was convicted of attempting to assassinate President Trump. He has been sentenced to life. According to the Reuters news agency, this was written by Jack Queen. Here's the summary. Ryan Ruth was arrested in 2024 on the Florida golf course, and he is a white man, by the way. Prosecutors say he lay in wait to try to shoot Trump. The suspect was convicted after serving as his own lawyer. How dumb. Well, he was going to be convicted anyway, but how dumb. Ryan Root, the man accused of hiding in the bushes of a Florida golf course with a semi-automatic rifle to try to assassinate Donald Trump less than 2 months before the 2024 U.S. election that returned him to the presidency, was sentenced to a judge on Wednesday to life in prison. Ruth, who was 59, was convicted by a jury last September of 5 criminal counts, including attempted assassination. After serving as his own defense lawyer at trial, U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon handed down the sentence in Fort Pierce, Florida. Quote, it's clear to me that you engaged in a premeditated, calculated plot to take your human life, end quote, Cannon said. Shackled at the hands and wearing beige prison garb, Ruth gave a rambling address at the sentencing hearing that did not touch on any facts of the case, but instead focused on foreign wars and Ruth's desire to be exchanged with political prisoners abroad. Prosecutors have recommended a life sentence, while Ruth had asked the judge, a Trump appointee, to impose a 27-year term. Are you stupid? Seriously. Is he stupid? He better be glad they didn't give him the death penalty. That's what he better be glad of. He better be glad that they didn't put him before an execution squad. And this dummy represented himself. You just can't go around trying to assassinate people because you don't like what they stand for politically. Martin Ruth, Ruth's lawyer, said during the hearing that Ruth was a troubled and complex person, but that he had a very good core and cared deeply about the well-being of others. Who cares? That has nothing to do what he tried to do. Nothing. They always want to bring in all the good factors about a person. They don't do it to black people when they're in court. And I've been in enough courtrooms to know. Ruth told reporters after the hearing that he plans to appeal Ruth's conviction and sentence. I can't make this stuff up, y'all. Seriously, I can't make this up. The only reason why his lawyer is going to appeal, because that's what he's supposed to do. His lawyer does not even believe in the innocence of his client. He's doing it as a constitutional obligation to his client for that reason and that reason only. That's it. He already knows that the appellate courts are going to turn it down, the federal courts are going to turn it down, the Supreme Court's are going to turn it down. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement that Ruth will never walk free again, and I agree with her. Quote, Ryan Ruth's heinous attempted assassination of President Trump was not only an attack on our president, it was a direct assault against our entire democratic system, end quote, Bondi said. I'm going to leave that article right there. The right decision was made. Now, I'll wait for a little commercial real quick. If you have stories, if you're watching from other parts of the world, and you want me to talk about what's going on in your part of the world, you got to let me know in the comment section, and I'll definitely start doing it. All right, let's see what's going on here. Updated February 4th. According to AccuWeather, the Northeast is bracing for a coldest weekend of winter with snow, rapid freeze up for some. A brutally cold weekend, this is according to AccuWeather. A brutally cold weekend awaits more than 100 million people in the northeastern quarter of the nation as Arctic air lunges southward straight from eastern Canada. The initial blast of cold air will bring a burst of snow to some areas, followed by a rapid freeze up and harsh, gusty winds. The air will have little chance to warm on its southward journey, as the landscape is largely frozen with vast areas of deep snow and frozen lakes and rivers. If, when the states are tallied, this weekend does not officially bring the lowest temperatures of the winter, it will feel like it in many cases for a while. So bundle up, everybody. It's cold out there, you know. Oh, check this out. This is according to The Guardian. An ICE attorney who said this job sucks has been removed from detail. Julie Lee expressed frustration to a judge in response to questions about failure to comply with court orders. This article was written by Sarah Braun, an ICE attorney who publicly expressed frustrations with her role and told a court this job sucks. Is no longer detailed to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Minnesota, according to NBC News. Quote, the system sucks, this job sucks, end quote, Julie Lee, an attorney representing the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota, said in response to a federal judge's questions on why ICE has repeatedly failed to comply with court orders. I wish you would hold me in contempt so I would have a full 24-hour sleep, she added in comments that quickly went viral. U.S. District Judge Jerry Blackwell had ordered Lee, as well as Assistant U.S. Attorney Anna Voss, to appear in his St. Paul courtroom on Tuesday to explain why the DHS dismissed multiple deadlines to release 5 detainees who the judge said never should have been arrested in the first place. A court order is not advisory and it is not conditional, Blackwell said. It is not something that an agency can treat as optional as it decides how or whether to comply. During the hearing, Lee acknowledged that many at the DHS did not understand the seriousness of an order from a federal judge. Are you serious? Come on. Come on here. How How could you lawyers not understand the seriousness of a judge's decreed order? Go ahead, we'll wait. You're telling us that that they didn't understand the seriousness of a decreed order by a federal judge? Let a black lawyer try that and watch what happened. Not only would they be held in contempt of court, not only would they lose their job, but they would be sued and locked up in prison as well. And you know it. Quote, it took a long, long, long time and many orders to show cause to explain and let them know that if you don't fix it, I'm going to quit and you're going to be dragging yourself into court, she said. I'm about to take a break in 5 minutes and I'll be back after a well-deserved break and for purposes of just making sure that I'm taking care of myself. So I'm going to leave the articles there for now. Make sure you all take care of yourselves. Seriously, all jokes aside. And remember, with me, none of this is personal. It's just business on this channel. That's it. Thank you for watching Tyrone Bowman Live today, ladies and gentlemen. If you like the channel, kindly subscribe. Appreciate you. Never surrender. Never quit.